Chairman, leave her ass.
Will I?
Good. Good? All right. The Diman Regional School Committee meeting for March 10th, 2022. Need a roll call?
Mr. Jennings,
Yes.
Mr. DiBiaseu,
Here.
Mr. Diman, Ms. Menard, here. Father Mello,
Here.
and Dr. Nara.
Speaking.
We have a quorum. In accordance to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, any member of the public may make an audio or video recording of this meeting. A member of the public who wishes to record the meeting must first notify the chair and must comply with the reasonable requirements regarding audio or video equipment established by the chair is not to interfere with the meeting. Anyone other than? No? Okay. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 3.1 is the public hearing on the FY23 budget. We'll have the open meeting for 5 minutes.
With the chair's permission, I'll let Mr. Kitchen do the presentation.
Yep.
In your packet, you have, for your, in your packet, what you were provided, you have a memorandum that contains the assessment breakdown, the Chapter 7 summary, the enrollment and the contributions by the districts, our cherry sheet recommendations from DLS, which pertains primarily to transportation. And then with that is a history of what was budgeted for 22, what was expended in 21, and budgeted in 21 also, as well as what we're requesting in 23. And then there's a detailed report on the 23 requests and the 22 actuals, and it gives you the variance. But for the open meeting, I put together a small PowerPoint to kind of go through those topics. So if I may. So, as the committee is aware, that the net school spending requirement is what is determined by the minimum contribution in Chapter 70. So in FY23, the minimum contribution to the sending communities is $8,541,329, which is roughly about a $265,000 decrease in the current year. The Chapter 70 aid, though, is roughly about a $936,000 increase. So the difference between those is that our increase from Chapter 20, from FY22 to FY23 is $671,072 for next year. So within the Commonwealth, the DESI gives a 5-year progression of showing the increases in Chapter 70, so it trends out for us. So as you saw in the previous slide, our Chapter 70 increase was a $900,000. Our actual net school spending increase, however, is only $673,000. Here you have a history of what our requirements were for what our funding was for FY21. So in FY21, it shows that the net school spending requirement, we received an additional $446,000 from the towns, another $679,000 from the state, totaling $1.1 million. In FY22, the minimum contribution was lower. It was $643,000, but the state aid was increased to $1.5 million. So the net increase in your revenues for this year was $1.788. Next year's projection is that $671,000. So there's a substantial decrease in the funding level based on the minimum contribution by the towns, and that's due to the enrollment. All right, so there's a decrease in enrollment from our October 1 report of this year, which will affect our funding for next year. Those funding levels for the minimum contribution is affected by the decrease in Fall River, which is the reduction in the minimum contribution for Fall River for next year is $245,524. There's a slight increase from Sunset because they have 12 additional students for $91,000. There's a slight increase actually for Swansea, even though with a reduction of 2 students. And that's based on the socioeconomic formula that the Department of Revenue and DESI put out. And then there's a reduction for Westport by 141, which gives us that minimum contribution reduction from FY22 to FY23 at $265,000. The second portion of the assessment is transportation. So we went out to bid earlier this year. Our transportation costs for next year is roughly $1,080,842. Our Chapter 71 aid, which is transportation reimbursement, based on last year's expenditures, is $667,457, which is more than we got this year. This year was about $471,000, and that's based on the available cash in the reimbursement pool. So historically, transportation is usually around 72 to 75%. With less people spending money in the prior years, what they've done is they've, less money going out, but the pool is bigger, so therefore the percentage went up to 91%. So by expending less, they're giving us more money to share. So that assessment, the difference, the assessment is $413,385, and then the ratio per student is broken out on the side. So obviously Fall River has the largest enrollment, so their assessment to their minimum contribution is $302,000, Somerset is $43,000, Swansea is $34,000, Westport is $31,000. So it's a relatively small number on the assessment for transportation due to the large number that they're giving us in Chapter 71 for next year. And that is the expected assessments based on preliminary numbers for Chapter 70 coming forward. Again, Fall River will be lower than this year's. Westport's will be a little bit lower than this year's also because of the enrollment number. Taking all your revenues in, this is the breakout of how our expenditures are budgeted for next year. There's a slight increase in administration, which is the 1,000 account of $19,000. There's an increase in the 2,000 instructional services. Primarily, that falls into our salary, our contractual obligations with salary, with department heads. Professional development is in there also. The items that are a little lower, and this is due to what we'll deal with later this evening, our textbooks is going to be a little bit lower because we're going to try to pre-purchase this year, and also with equipment. At the last meeting, we purchased $155,000 worth of equipment, which will bring us over the current year budgeted figure by about $30,000. But on our requests, because we can pre-purchase this year based on revenue, that'll offset next year's budget. Operation and maintenance is about $50,000, and what we've done in operations and maintenance is, in the past, the maintenance of building has been a larger number. We're actually taking that down because it's not the building that we're putting money in. Well, we are putting money into the building, but a lot of the mechanical works are what we're repairing, so it's really maintenance of equipment, so it's a reclassification. So there's a shift, and it's not, obviously we're not decreasing the maintenance of the facility, we're just realigning where the expenditures are. Fixed costs are your health insurance, your retirement costs, well, it's really that, it's health insurance, retirement costs, and the Fall River Retirement Board. And the Fall River Retirement Board, I believe this year is about $100,000 increase next year. So we're not looking at a big number, considering that one charge is gonna be more than what the increase is, because we made some minor reductions in other areas. We have no acquisition of property, we have no debt service at this point, and then the only other one is the 9,000, which is tuition, which is our sending tuition, which is put out by DOR every year. So DOR bases that on our sending history, and then in June it's realigned, and then it's taking points, we pay it. So that's really what our lineup looks like. So I think it's a well-balanced expenditure of funds, because we're spending most of our money on our instructional services, which is going to fall into teaching, professional development, and then the next one beneath that is student services, which falls into really activities, and some of it is athletics. Other than that, we have some minor increases throughout the other areas. When we look at it as a pie chart, it comes back out to the same. It's a visual. It's just basically showing that our instructional costs of the 2000s are more than 50%. It's probably closer to 60% of our budget, which is why we're in education. So that's really an overview of what our budget looks like next year.
We'll take any questions?
Mr. Chairman? I know I went over a lot of this with you yesterday, Paul.
Yep.
Couple questions here. The rental lease of building,
Yep.
149,000. What is that?
That is the LPN building down on Wall Street.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And
So since we've moved back up here, it's actually a little low for us.
Any others?
but everything else, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kitchen answered yesterday.
This is what we told you.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about transportation.
Yes.
Does our transportation vendor have the ability to assess the district a fuel surcharge?
Not in the
In other words,
contract.
Fuel is heading up substantially, do they have that ability?
It's not in the contract. There's no escalation or de-escalation, which would not be appropriate in this time, but no, they're locked in.
You have another question?
Yeah, Dr. Burr, have you and Mr. Kitchen met with the individual towns in the city about next year's,
They have been notified of preliminary numbers, yes.
okay.
Anyone else in the public?
If I can clarify also, just because Mr. Mattos brings up a good question, a good point. In the budget, we have about $240,000 budgeted for our heat in the building also. So as you pointed out, escalation in fuel is there. If there is, last year we spent $170,000. So we do have some flexibility there. I did not increase it. It's an area that obviously we should keep an eye on. So I do want to make that point too, because that was a valid point. So if we do have some need in Christmas, New Year, January comes rolling around, we'll reassess and keep monitoring it. And like every year, we put it out and we try to get a fixed in price, but that might not be the best thing next year. It might be a variable price.
We're on year to year on that.
We are, yeah, we didn't do extended.
Okay, this will close the public hearing on the budget. We will move to the public hearing on FY23 school choice.
As has been historical evidence for our district and our school, we continue to have more applications than we have seats. Currently, we have about 725 applications for next year's freshman class. They're being processed through the guidance. 725.
And for how many seats total?
375 was the vote of this committee in the fall.
And 725 applied.
Correct.
For 375 seats.
Correct.
If you can, Dr. Burr, if I could, when you, Ms. Miller gets a chance, just a breakdown of how many from each community would
Sure.
be good for us.
Anyone in the public? Good comment on school school choice? All right, I'll close the meeting on school choice. Moving to 1.5, the approval of February 10th, 2022 minutes.
Motion made.
Need a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Abstain? Opposed? 1.6, student report, we have Brian Needham. Is he on virtual?
No, so we have a report that the Zoom link may not be working well, so that would be the issue, but I don't have anybody.
You might be having some difficulties, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Do you have a copy of his report?
I do not.
Okay. 1.7, citizens input related to items on the agenda. Do we have anybody?
I do not.
Nobody. Okay, we have 2.0 unfinished business, 2.1 superintendent's 2021 end cycle summary of the evaluation.
And that's just a reminder, if anyone hasn't completed the superintendent's report from 2021, just see Mrs. Neps and we can take care of that piece. Same with 2.2, the mid-year that folks received a few months ago. For my evaluation, my mid-year evaluation for 2022. If anybody needs an additional copy or if you need to set up time, just let us know and we'll gladly take care of that piece.
2.3, we have a grievance subcommittee report, Mr. DiBiase.
Yes, I'll defer to Mr.
The grievance subcommittee met today and received documentation based on what was requested at the last meeting. After reviewing those documents, the grievance subcommittee took a vote unanimous vote 2-0 to settle the matter with agreement at terms and conditions agreed upon between the Diman Teachers Association and the Greater Florida School District. It is basically a one-time issue and with no precedent setting, and a portion of the gentleman's salary is going to be paid. That's a recommendation of the grievance subcommittee.
Okay, need a full vote,
Yes, you do. You have the motion.
need a
Full vote.
motion,
Motion made.
need a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries. 3.0 new business, A, which is the FY23 budget approval.
So at this point, we would be looking for an approval from the committee for the FY23 budget as submitted by Mr. Fisher.
Need a motion to approve the budget?
Motion made.
Need a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? B, school choice.
The recommendation is for Diman Regional not to be a school choice for the 22-23 school year due to our inability to accept all students wanting to enroll from our four sending districts.
Need a motion?
Motion made.
Need a second?
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
Explain to me the budget item for school choice of the $90,000, and it's not doing that.
So the way school choice works, any student that is in our sending district who wishes to acquire a technical education but is not granted access to Greater Fall River has the ability to go to a Chapter 74 school if their regular high school is a school choice partner with someone else. So if a student from Somerset Berkeley region goes to Dighton Rehoboth to study a Chapter 74 program, that student is considered a Greater Fall River Chapter 74 student even though they're not here. So they go there, Somerset pays a portion of the tuition, we pay a portion of the tuition, but the student counts as an enrolled Chapter 74 student for Dighton.
That's what I understand. So if we're saying we're not doing school choice,
Right, so we will not be accepting any school choice. No one
we're
can
not
accept.
accepting it.
Correct.
But we will, okay.
Yes. So school choice out from our sending communities is still fine, which is why we pay that number. We will not be a school choice in for anything.
Do we have any students do that this
Yes.
year?
Yes.
All right, we got the motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? C, personnel, we have some appointments.
We do have some appointments. Meredith Rose is being appointed as the sophomore class advisor. Priscilla Wicks will also be appointed as a sophomore class advisor. Stephen Camaro will be the girls' tennis coach. Mike Valerio will be the boys' tennis coach.
And we have some advisory board.
We do. Haley Cooper, a graduate from Graphic Communications. She's a graduate of 2017. She's attending Massachusetts College of Art and Design. She's also working as a freelance designer since 2018.
Need a motion to approve.
Motion made.
Need a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We also have some resignations. Mr. Carpenter is resigning from the plumbing shop. Mr. Young has resigned from the auto collision shop. And Mr. Westgate is resigning from the business office.
Have these positions been filled or?
We have filled the business office position. We have posted for the plumbing and the auto collision instructor.
Were these unexpected?
Um, no retirements, personal reappointments, different positions they've taken on in different places.
3.1, the acceptance of gifts.
So we are looking to accept a donation of oral surgical instruments from Dr. Anita Jones of Fall River. The dental assisting program will use these instruments for educational purposes.
Recommendation to accept the donation.
Motion made.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 3.1E, transfers.
As I had mentioned, during the budget process, some of the academic departments and the vocational departments requested textbooks. We have the availability within our budget this year at the bottom to transfer those funds to meet those needs. So I'm asking to transfer $225,320 from the recommended funds to the purchase of those items.
Need a motion? Need a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
These books are currently required or they'll be used for the next school year?
They are going to be, Mr. Mattos actually in his math department did a review of the math for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. They've selected a math series, which is going to be used next year. He's also applied for an accelerated math grant and received a portion of that to be paid for the math series also. And then the other vocational books are primarily code books, or things used in that series. So yes, we'll make the purchases this year. They'll hopefully arrive before June, and they'll be ready to go for September.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
are we looking to, now that we're into 2022, to start putting these books onto our Chromebooks that we give the kids, instead of us purchasing, I mean, we have to purchase the program, Dr. Warner and I have talked about this in the past, but instead of purchasing the hard copy books, we should be looking to purchase the book to put onto the Chromebook, so we don't have these hard copy books.
We're actually doing both. We're buying some classroom sets to stay
On
here.
this right here?
Yes. And we're
It all
buying,
says textbooks, it doesn't say.
right, it all comes out of the same line, but there'll be online licenses for all the students so they can access the material through their Chromebooks, but we'll have some resources here as the students, might need some classroom sets.
So we're looking to do that more and more, correct?
Correct. As is appropriate, some programs it's simply not appropriate, but other programs where it's applicable, we will move in that direction.
Okay. 3.1F, we have another set of expenditure approvals. Mr. Kitchen.
There's a series of requests for over 5,000. Some of these have been approved in the last meeting when we did our transfers for the equipment, but they all are still sitting in the DAC, so therefore I'm asking to have your approval to continue with the purchases of these items.
Recommendation to approve all the expenditures. Need a motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Certainly.
Right. Some of these, I know some of them we are familiar that we approved at the last meeting, but
Yep.
are we going out to bid for some of these things, or are we just?
Now, for instance, the item for advanced technology, CAD, that is a vendor that's on the state contract. Electronics is on the state contract. The Wright trailer, Mr. Patello did receive 3 quotes, so he provided me with that on a quote sheet. And anything that's over 10,000, we've got quotes for, or unless they're on the Massachusetts state contract or on Mass Higher Ed.
Only items over 50,000 will require us to go out to bid.
And as of right now, the house building has a containers that they get picked up and delivered, which is a lot safer to keep your equipment in than a right trailer. So-
This trailer is going to be here on premises for us to move back and forth as we might need. Is that the question? But
Yeah, I mean, just for knowledge for you guys, I mean, there's been a rash of these right trailers stolen recently with the tools in them. So whatever we're gonna do with these things, we have to make sure we take precautions because they sometimes break into them and take the tools out, and other times they take the whole trailer. So, you know, I don't know why do they need the right trailer? Is it because of smaller projects?
I believe the idea is to bring it back and forth to school. Mrs. Torres can answer, but with the moving away from the bus to a 15-passenger van, the trailer will be connected to the van and it can go back and forth instead of staying on the project overnight for a long period of time.
As long as we know the tow package on the van is good enough to pull us.
Now, the purchase we made was for that move, so we should have
We had
continuity.
discussed this from the van to the van.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah. Yeah. We had talked about doing the trailers because we were going to vans now, transporting.
And the other issue, if I may, through the chair, is that, as you know, through our audit, we have to get rid of these containers that we have that are here on the building. So that will eliminate one of the containers.
Well, just for reference, if we're gonna be taking on house projects, the container is a good thing to have because they keep their tools, they keep some of their special lumber in there, they keep a lot of things in that container. The right trailer doesn't hold all those things.
This is a larger trailer than if you recall the trailer that we bought.
I know what,
Property,
yeah.
this is larger.
Yeah, I know the sizes of the trailers, and I have one, and they don't support the weight that the containers support, and they don't, even the bus has equipment in there that's fixed in, and if you're gonna use that fixed equipment in these containers, in the right trailer, you're not gonna have any room for much more anyway.
Our current bus does not, actually, because our current bus is the old plumbing bus.
The bus I saw at Mr. Silver's house had equipment in there. So, I'm just saying that we shouldn't be just getting rid of containers, because if we are doing a project, and most contractors today, because of the security of the container, are keeping containers on the sites rather than right trailers. So just for reference, I mean, the DESI thing wasn't to get rid of the containers, the DESI thing was to keep the containers away from the building. So, you know, just for thought, I mean, we shouldn't be just getting rid of it.
Well, those trailers are not being left on site, they're being transported back to the school.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be, and Coventry has vetted it out, and this was their request, that they would prefer this versus the container.
Right. So they're coming back here to a secure area.
I understand that, Ms. Jennings, but I'm just saying that when you're building a house, there's a lot more tools and a lot more stuff left there, and to pack it up and back and forth with the container is kind of difficult. When you're building a house, there's a lot of tools being put back and forth. That's why contractors are now putting these containers on the property. So, and I think if you talk to house building, they'll probably agree with that statement.
Well, they were the ones that requested.
I talked to him when I was there, and he even said the container that they have there is very good, because it keeps a lot of the bigger stuff, but the smaller tools he takes in the bus, he takes them back and forth. So,
There is a potential, just for clarification, we might need both. If we're not using the bus anymore, which transports students and some smaller material, the trailer will be doing that. If there's a need to have a container at the building site, then obviously the department would make that recommendation and we would move forward with it.
I think if you want to put that on the house building subcommittee, and you want to discuss that in that.
We will do that.
Okay. Any other questions on the expenditures? Hearing none, need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Need a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Can I just have a point of clarification? Are we holding that?
No,
expenditure?
we're going to go ahead with it, it's just a matter of.
Discussion at the next
Discussion.
Very good, thank you.
No.
Okay, you got, see, 3.1G, the FY '22 budget adjustment. What's the kitchen?
The request for the adjustment is based on a February 28th Department of Education correspondence stating that you did not, the district did not meet their net school spending number. And what the gist of it comes in the third paragraph where it says greater for over FY '21 requirement, including the $1,323,493 carryover in Schedule 19, shows that the district plans to spend $29,876,276. I am pleased to see that the district appears to be in compliance this year. So in order to be in compliance with your net school spending figure, and the practice has been done in the past, is that you would need to adjust the FY '22 budget to that figure by transferring $1,323,493 to the extraordinary repairs, and then $4,174 to the school choice line, which it's reflected in the end of the year report. And that would give us a FY '22 budget of $29,876,276.
Any questions on that? No? All right, need a motion to make the transfer. Need a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
And you're up again, 3.1H, monthly financial report.
I have to say that it's always a pleasure to do it because there is only one negative, and it's a minor issue with a lease that was for custodial equipment on the page 3 for $11,605. We are obviously looking at our available cash to make some purchases this year, and I think we've made our equipment purchases for the vocational programs last month. We made our textbooks and some minor other supplies this month. And next month, I intend on presenting transfers for facility issues, the majority of which would be abatements. That would be a transfer of approximately $300,000. The need for the abatement is due to running of network cable with our extra money. So to make that possible, we need to abate a large portion of the hallways. So things stand well, and I think we'll finish ahead. We won't be, we're pacing ourselves appropriately.
Great. Any questions or comments on the report? Hearing none, moving on. 3.1I, the approval of the MOA contract.
Members of the board, took a little while, but we finally got the final contract for your approval. So the motion would be to approve the execution of the contract as negotiated. We got the board to approve this executive session long ago. We're just getting the final document, and this is actually. So the motion would be to approve the signing of the ETA contract as negotiated.
Motion made.
Need a second? Oh,
There
question?
are no changes made.
No.
The motion, need a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Three point one J, the house building subcommittee, Mr. DiBiase.
Mrs. Torres is here, since she's here. I'm going to have Ms. Torres, if she'd like, to just go over the community projects for us, of what's happening right now.
Sure. Community projects are pretty much as they were last month. We do have one project for the town of Swansea for the Luther Museum. signage and as well as some signs for the softball field and the playground in that area. So we have those additional signs to make. The other project that we have on the, that we're working on is with Mass DOT in the city of Fall River to redo the sign on 24 South as you head into Fall River, the Welcome to Fall River sign. It's a mahogany, old mahogany sign with little letters. So I've spoken with City Council member Linda Ferraro, who chairs the subcommittee on tourism for the city. And so she's petitioned to the mayor to work with Mass DOT to have that sign taken down, and then we will collaborate with them as to what they want the sign to look like, and then have the sign replaced. That may lead to other signage throughout the city so that it's a little bit more uniform throughout the city. That'll be a longer standing project. And then we are getting started on the mini splits for the city of Fall River down at the water treatment plant. And HVAC will be going out there in the next couple of weeks to price that out. That will be potentially a September project. And any questions?
We still have the garage going on.
Correct. We, as part of the house building project, we don't have a house, so we're doing the garage. It's coming along. We've had a little bit of a struggle with the weather and ice and out of the site, but it's coming along. We'll be starting to move soon, and it will be complete by the end of the school year.
Also, on the house building, Ms. Torres came up with she drafted up a application for the house construction, and she also has a pamphlet for the rules and regulations for building of a house that they can download. We looked at this during our meeting, and we as a subcommittee approved them. We'd just be looking for approval from the full board.
Did everybody get them?
They are going to be critiquing what you just looked at, the scan.
Yes, so when someone scans, we're hoping to put these at financial institutions so that as individuals that are applying for home loans, building loans, the institutions could handle the pamphlet, and if they scan those QR codes, one will take them directly to the application, the other will take them to the rules and regulations. Next month's meeting, we'll be presenting some changes to the contract and to the rules and regulations so that we can kind of get them on par and even. We'll be meeting with corporate counsel attorney and finalizing that and submitting that to you for approval as well.
How many applications do you normally get for a house?
Not many, especially
Prior to
during
COVID.
COVID, we didn't get any.
Prior to?
One or two.
Yeah, one or two.
Yeah, I think the most we ever saw, Mr. Chairman, was like, we had one year where we had like 4. That was the most I ever saw in the years I've been here.
So it's been about 5 years since we've had a private citizen that we've built for. Prior to COVID, the 3 years prior to COVID, we worked with People Incorporated, and we worked with them, and it was a lottery.
We did
So it's
two.
been 5
I think we
years.
did 2 homes with him. So
Three.
The 3 homes that this is.
Yeah, prior to COVID, the 3 years prior to COVID was People Incorporated, 3 houses.
So we'll be bringing that back to you next month. This month, I'm just looking, Mr. Chairman, for approval of the application.
Get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
And the only other thing we have right now is we have practice fields that we're waiting on even before the new school came in, we were always tight on areas for our teams, since we have 3 soccer teams, 3 football teams, all going at the same time. In the spring, it's not any easier, there's a lot going on. So we started looking into, in the front of the school, similar to the area where we're going to look to put a parking lot, put in a practice field. This would also help us this practice field if, I should say when we stop building the new school. And it'll be taking over our football field and track, and also taking over the two softball fields for the staging area. So this would give us an area there, and if we can get down to the baseball field, an area there for our football and soccer, especially in the spring, instead of transporting them to whoever would allow us to use the field. So that's, we'll be getting back some prices next month, I believe. Dr. Ferrera, that's been out there now, and we're waiting for a few more prices to come back.
We will hope to have for the April meeting specs and price quotes from vendors.
And with that, we have nothing else on the bill.
Okay, thank you. 3.1K, we have the 2022-23 school year calendar.
So you have for your review next year's school calendar. No major changes. Everything that's in there is required through the state. All the holidays are in there, the breaks are in there, so that's for your review and approval for next school year.
What's the opening day is?
31st.
Okay. Need a motion or any questions on the,
Motion to approve.
need a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 3.1I, the MSBA update. Mr. DiBiase, you want to give a report or?
Dr. Ferrera was at the corporate meeting. I was not there. If Dr. Ferrera would like to give us a short report on where we stand right now with the MSBA.
So right now, we're in a holding pattern with the 4 districts. The 3 towns have given us their non-action in 2 towns and the vote in 1. We're waiting to see if there's any change in that. As voted by this committee, our 60-day window expires May 20th of 2022, where we can't take any action until that window is closed. So on the 21st of May, we can start to notify the MSBA where we are. As of right now, we don't have any disapproval votes from any of the 4 sending communities. We are going to hope to continue that moving forward and take necessary actions when that time comes. We have submitted all of the signed documents to the MSBA for their review, the scope and budget agreement, all of the documentation associated with the funding of the new school and the spending of the new school. All of that has been sent up to Jack McCarthy and his crew for their signature and their approval. So for the time being, we sit and wait and see how it all plays out. And hopefully on May 21st, we are able to move forward and go into the next phase.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none. 3.1M, we have the superintendent report, Dr. Ferrera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the students for the high school, as of February 28th, we have 235 students out in the co-op program. We have 1,400 students enrolled in the high school. And again, approximately 730 applications have come in for the class of 2023. On the staffing side, mid-semester 2 grades are closing soon, so we're about 3/4 of the way through the school year. Staff and faculty are going to be involved in professional development coming up in April. And as mentioned prior, we do have the State Outstanding Vocational Awards Banquet scheduled for Mechanics Hall in Worcester in person, April 14th of 2022. We have received approval on our ESSER 3 grants, which will expire in September of 2024, so we're ready to spend ESSER 1, 2, and 3 as we go. We also have received correspondence, as Mr. Kitchen mentioned before, our FY21 and FY22 net school spending. We have approval from the state that all of our numbers are in line, and as you folks have approved the update to the 22 budget this year, we have no red flags with DESE as it relates to our budgets. As mentioned before, we are also working with the city of Fall River, updating our evacuation plan for the high school. Our emergency plan if something happens here on campus and we have to leave Stonehaven Road. We're working with the city and the police department there to make sure everything is in play. I do want to shed some light, as Mr. Kitchen mentioned before, an appreciation to Mr. Mattos and the math department. for their hard work. They applied for a grant to help with the textbooks, and we have received the first part of that grant. So I know a lot of hours and ton of work went into that, so I appreciate Mr. Mathis and those folks doing all that work, and some great work to get to the students what they need moving forward. From Mr. Rebello on the principal side, we are continuing to do our test kit distribution. The at-home COVID tests are still being distributed to staff and students every Tuesday.
It's in everyone's orange folder. To your right, there should be an orange folder, the updates and subsequent attachments throughout.
Thank you, sir. Starting Monday, March 14th, we are going to try to go back to lunches in one location in the student cafeteria. That will allow for increased food options, vending machines, access to the courtyard, so a relative return to normal beginning on Monday, so that way we can stop using the auditorium for lunches. We have started our MCAS infrastructure for the test coming up in March. It was actually run today. To date, I don't think we have any problems or issues, but we will continue to do that. That's going to start now March 23rd. March 23rd is the online English MCAS test for grade 10 students. We do have a job fair coming up. You have correspondence in your folder from Mr. Lazaro, scheduled for Thursday, May the 5th. So everything that goes along with that is in the correspondence from Mr. Lazaro. We also have a new school resource officer, Officer Kevin Lopes. He has started with us. He is doing a great job getting to know the kids and really interacting with them, especially at lunchtime. Likes to sing, very good. We might have a karaoke night at Diman Regional coming up.
He's an excellent officer.
Yes,
And,
seems to be a very good guy.
Does he still have his K-9 or is he no longer?
No. South Coast Conference, so the school is entertaining and reviewing and exploring the option of having our athletics program move from the Mayflower League into the South Coast Conference. Mr. Rebello, our athletic director, Mr. Ferreira, they are, again, exploring with the MIAA and the South Coast Conference members to see if it's a good fit for Diman moving forward. As far as semester 2, we do have some time set up for our educators to continue professional growth and improvement. On the student side, we've had several assemblies for all 4 grade levels. We've given them some student data for them to understand and review. We are working through our grant with a company called Balanced Learning for some restorative practices. We have some continuous discipline issues that come up. So we're going to try to change our approach a little bit and have some restorative practices instead of just punitive practices moving forward, just to ensure that the students are actually getting the best possible actions and reactions for the stuff that they might be doing. As far as work completion, student work completion, we continue to do our after school and our virtual tutoring to make sure students are turning in work, and as we get closer to the year, we want to see anybody who's struggling or potentially failing to get those grades up so we don't have issues moving forward towards the backside of the school year. As far as upcoming and ongoing initiatives, we continue to work with Bristol Community College on college access pathway expansion. As you know, we have the engineering CAP program. We're looking to expand that into a few other areas. We're also looking to partner with them on the offshore wind exploration. That's coming up with a meeting scheduled with them next week. We have an enrollment and transfer task force. These are folks who are looking at our enrollment numbers. As we've discussed in the past, we've had a dip in the upper grades, and we're trying to see if we can come up with creative ways to ensure if there are spaces here for students that we open up those doors and try to get folks in here, whether that be in 9, 10, or 11. So there's some development going on there and some recommendations coming to folks in the next few months. We're also looking to improve our interview and hiring processes, procedural-wise, going through the right steps to make sure what we're doing is appropriate when we hire staff, faculty here on campus. We're also looking to go to a new platform, which is part of the expenditure report, that will streamline what we do and how we do it, so that way folks don't have to go to 14 different locations to apply for a position here at Greater Fall River. It's going to be centralized. Mr. Rebello has been working with Ms. Garcia to get all that in place so that we can move forward with that. As far as community partnerships, we have 2 coming up this month. Tomorrow, the school resource officers will be here for a breakfast. We will be hosting them here at the restaurant. And on March 24th, one South Coast. The local chamber will be here for a business breakfast as well.
One question, did you ever reach out to the other three communities on the SROs?
So I started with Sergeant Galveo of the Fall River Police Department. He oversees all the school resource officers. This is specific for Fall River school resource officers. It's an annual training. If we want to do something to host all SROs here to celebrate them, that's something we can discuss, but
This is more of a training, not a social event for you.
specific for Fall River Police Department school resource officers.
You know, in addition to, some initiatives, would the district ever consider, utilizing a diversity coordinator? I know a lot of municipalities have such, I know a lot of businesses have such, and moreover, I know a lot of institutions of education that have a diversity coordinator or a diversity administrator. And in the sense that we want to be transparent, we have 1,400 students, we have over 700 applicants. I think it may behoove some conversation that we bring someone on board who can resonate with the students, the needs, and, just be all inclusive and handling any concerns that may be anticipatory in the time to come. I think we could open, that dialogue that maybe our school, I know other schools have such a position of the sort.
I was just gonna
If the
say-
budget allows, if there's some way we can navigate grants for our school books, and I think that's so critical, but maybe with any opera money or anything that we can kind of utilize programs to bring in, and they could piggyback a dual enrollment, whether in their guidance or athletics or whatever the case may be. I think that would be critical and just establishing our district apart from other institutions of learning.
It is something that has happened a lot this year with the ESSER money that came out. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big push from the state. So numerous school districts have utilized ESSER funds to put personnel into those positions to help with diversity issues at the district level, inclusion issues at the district level. That is something we can investigate. If you want us to take a look at that, again, it is something that numerous school districts across the Commonwealth have taken on as part of the initiatives for this year. It's a major push from the state. We've been doing little bits and pieces on our end to push diversity and equity. We have grants that we have applied for to look at some of our methods here, whether it's the application process, the placement process. So we have groups of people looking at that data. But as Dr. Neary is saying, there have been numerous school districts who have created this personnel position. It is something we can explore, and I'm relatively certain under the ESSER funds that it could qualify as something that would be okay.
I think we should.
Something that you want to research and come back to us, or you want Dr. Nero or
We-
whoever else wants to be on a subcommittee to talk about it? Either way.
We can establish a subcommittee if you want. It's something we can research on our end and report back to you if that's what you're looking for.
I think it's critical because everybody's, whether it's a business, it's a municipality, or it's an institution of learning, I think that's going to be all inclusive. We have administrators, I think that needs to be part of our body.
And we're doing work exactly what you mentioned right now with what we have, right? So we applied for the mental health grant, we received $150,000. Part of that work is consulting with Khalees Warner. She's a DEI, diversity and inclusion expert that is looking at some of our survey data. We had a student survey, equity survey, a staff equity survey, and she's starting to work with us, and she's actually coming to our April PD to present to staff and start that work with some of our staff. We also have an equity committee to do exactly what you say, to start auditing some of our curriculum, starting to look at some of our work. And within your packets, the hiring and development strategy also encompasses some of this work. On one of the back pages, you'll see our Diamond demographics. You'll see Diamond students, their demographics, and Diamond staff. And unless, like Dr. Nara mentions, and the point's well taken, unless you do something, change will not happen.
Right, and then we have an ambassador for those issues.
Absolutely.
We can understand the data, we can understand the facts, but unless we have someone, an individual to navigate, to be that beacon, to drive us forward, only there and there.
And that's what I hope to continue to consult with police to do, And you'll see on the next page where we're actively trying to attempt to market our school better. You'll see a bilingual and diversity virtual teacher career fair that we want to start. So it's starting to get into our practices, but it's a work in progress undoubtedly.
Okay.
Did you want to work on that, or you just want?
No, I would like to work on it. I would like to move forward because this individual, whoever that may be, would be, part of the fabric and all of the promoting our school or showcasing our school or handling any issues of the same. So yes, whatever needs to be done, there lies a concern, and I believe the solution may be such that we try to bring in an individual whose responsibility, whose duty, whose job is just to be an advocate for diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll review it and research it, and I know New Bedford Hope just did it, as well as some other, our sister vocation schools, so I'll get some information, maybe some job descriptions, figuring out what those folks have done on their end, because they have it now, and it could be something we can weave into the grant for the 23 school year.
Okay.
We'll present to you in April. Yep, absolutely.
April, May.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Quick question.
Brett?
Can you speak to the declining numbers? So I think, talk about how it affects the budget. I think Henry, watching this and we hear, we've got 730 students applying, 375 spots. We have declining enrollment. Explain that, why or?
So the decline took place in the current junior and senior class. So the past 2 years, as students moved from in 2020 sophomore year, in 2021 junior year, 2022 senior year. Through the pandemic, through the remote, through the hybrid scenario, we had students leave the district for a wide variety of reasons, whether it be moving, transferring, some folks prefer to stay remote, period, and not come back to in-person learning. The problem we've run into, as has been historical practice, is we normally don't bring in juniors and seniors unless they're transferring from a different vocational program. So our grade 9 and 10 numbers are constant and good and high, and we can continue to backfill those. The losses come at 11 and 12. So over the past 2 years, that's where we've seen the greatest loss. Again, we think it's an anomaly situation with the pandemic because, again, it has been juniors and seniors. But we should and are looking at proactive steps to make sure whatever we can do to bolster those situations moving forward, such as the current junior class is around 335 kids. When they become seniors, we're not going to bring in more seniors next year. So that number is going to be relatively constant. But there could be a potential for us to take in more sophomores next year. The approved upon number of sophomores right now, I believe, is 365. We could make a motion, or even if it's 375, to bring in a few more sophomores next year. So that way, when they become juniors, we have more of a cushion. We know that there are spots open on the vocational side. We've started to look at spots open on the academic side. We're going to look at over the next 4 to 6 weeks and hopefully come to the committee with some possible recommendations to offset the losses we've seen in the past 2 years.
How many students do you have in the sophomore class right now?
About 360,
In the freshman class?
373.
Do we lose majority of them after shops were signed, Christmas break?
It's hot and cold. We have a season in September, October, where students, especially if they're freshmen, they think this is what they want. They come here, they go through a rotation, they decide no. So folks leave. We bring in students from the application list. We tend to lose a few here and there, November, December. January, February, we lose another relatively big number. By big, 20 to 30, where students are placed in shops where they're not necessarily happy, can't get a
So
shop.
are we reaching out to students who applied and do not get in? If we're looking at freshman, sophomore, we have about 17 spots that we could take in.
Yes. Yes. We
Okay.
continue to look at, the sophomores is a little bit more difficult because there is no exploratory, and we basically say, we have an opening in X, do you want it?
Okay.
It's not like they can come in and say, oh, I want to do, there's no opening in culinary, so that's, the sophomore side is a little bit trickier. The freshman side, we have a little more
So
flexibility.
what do we do? We actually making physical calls?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Anytime any spots open up, the guidance office contacts the next student on the admissions list and offers them a spot. If they're interested, we do everything we need to bring them in. If they pass, because the vocational opening that we have isn't necessarily what they're looking for, then we.
I just think it's important to clarify for people here, we have declining numbers, or should we wait for 400 kids?
No.
That doesn't make sense.
It's a pandemic situation that we've seen, and it's always in the junior and senior side, it's never on the freshman side.
Thank you.
The 373, are you still looking to fill those other two
Yes,
spots?
yes, Mrs. Miller, I
No,
met with her the
this-
other day, she's continuing to make phone calls to students. Again, it's a little bit trickier because it is late in the season, we have made our shop changes, so the spots that are open are not huge, and there isn't a great variety. But if it's a right fit for someone who's looking to come in and is interested in that opening, we offer them the spot.
Could we also look at the same time, if we can take any more freshmen than the 375? What I mean by that is once the numbers go out, and, we can.
For this year or for next year?
For this year, next year.
For the incoming class, yes, we'll look
We'll
at
look at
it.
that, so if you need to come back to us and ask for an increase,
Yes.
we can, make a discussion.
The school is reviewing those numbers.
If we have the room in the shops and the classroom
The
without
shops-
overburdening
In the
anybody.
classroom,
It's the academic side that's more difficult. The
we
academic
use the
side.
overall number and say we want
Yeah.
1450, but if you have 425 kids in freshman class, you don't have the room in the classroom, so that means
Correct.
freshman.
On the academic side, it's really, really tight, as is. So if there is any possibility, it's not going to be a gigantic number. It might be a small number in grade 9 for next September, for upcoming September. We'll look at grade 10 as well to see if there are openings that will make sense for us. It doesn't make sense for us to accept a student, try to put a schedule together, it doesn't work, and now, so we'll calculate those out, and we can do that research and bring it back to you next month.
Do we advertise for the sophomore class, like, let's say we're down, right, sophomore, you said we're at 360. So do we advertise that we have 15 available, or we just wait and see if any student applies in?
We have a wait list. We have a wait list of sophomores as
Yeah,
well.
we have a wait list from the freshman year,
Correct.
but a lot of those students have, for example, I know a student that came in here and graduated last year, he came several years ago, but he applied in his sophomore year, he never applied in his freshman year. So it might be advantageous for us to let the students know that we are looking for some students to fill slots in the sophomore class, who's starting in the sophomore year.
We can do that, we just
So
have to
somebody
communicate
who
with the
didn't,
schools.
now they feel, oh, yeah, I'll never be able to do it, but they still might have that chance to come in.
We can definitely advertise, but the advertisement's going to be through the local high school, so we'll just communicate with their guidance department. We can do, just like we do with the 8th graders, we can send a recruitment team up there to see if anybody is interested as a sophomore transfer.
Just the number's a lot smaller, that's all.
Yeah.
And just as another point, this is the work that, our enrollment and transfer task force is looking at. There are actually some vocational schools that allow junior transfers, so that conversation has started as well. Juniors coming in, now only specific shops, of course, for example, Cape Cod Tech does this in, I think, 2 of their shops. So part of our conversation is auditing where could this happen, what would that look like, what are the implications on the graduation end for junior transfers.
When I was in school a few years ago, we did that in the automotive shop. We had a junior come in the junior year. And he stayed for, the 2 years, and what he ended up with was he didn't get the vocational degree, but he did get a high school diploma. So, but he got training for 2 years in auto technology.
Yeah.
So it's just something to look at.
Yeah.
If this student wants to get some training, they're in the junior year, and they're saying, oh my God, I wish I did a trade, then it might be advantageous for them to come in.
That's exactly what we're looking at, is where could it happen, what shops, and then the implications of, the certificates.
And again, the guidance in the high schools will be able to help us with that, because they're starting to reach out to juniors to see what they're interested in their senior year, whether it's in college or business school or military, whatever.
Okay,
We'll do that work and report back to you tomorrow.
all right, thank you.
Before we move on to new business, I think she has something to say about the mask, and I'd like a little bit more clarification about the mask. that they're gonna
Excuse me,
create.
is that public input?
I don't know, is there public input at the
Yeah,
end?
that would be public input at the beginning.
All right, just want to make sure we don't move on to something else.
No, and it would only be on what's on the actual agenda at the time.
All right.
So masks are not on the agenda because they're actually, tomorrow's the last day for the masks.
Okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you.
Moving on?
Yep, moving on. 3.1N, the Bengal Foundation project.
So we have two projects that have come from the electronics program for consideration. The department head, Mr. Bowden, has ranked them, as you'll see on the applications, the 1 and the 2. So with permission, we will move this forward to the Bengal Educational Foundation for review so that the electronics department can get one of these two pieces of equipment. I have been in communication with the foundation. They do have their fundraiser going on. They are waiting on our end to send them a recommendation. So these are the two we would like to move forward.
Okay, recommendation to approve the project.
Motion made.
Need a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Did he ask for either one of these on the 2023 budget?
Yes, the three items, I asked him to prioritize his items, and we purchased his number one item.
So this was already been purchased, or?
No.
No,
his-
he requested 3.
His
The other-
highest value.
The highest one we approved?
We approved on the it's on the,
You're not supposed to approve the highest.
he runs an exceptional program.
He does, fantastic program. So if there's a way, I mean, if this is, if, Maria, if this is something that you think they're going to need and it would really benefit the students, I know we're approving the first choice, if that's part of the section. If there's a way of finding room in the budget to get this, if this is desperately needed, it'd be nice to bring it to Mr. Kitchen and come back to us and see if there's a way we can get this.
And Mr. Kitchen and I are always in communication regarding the purchases for the shop. May I ask a question to the chair? There's been a direct donation made to the Advanced Manufacturing Program through the Bengal Foundation. They're seeking to ask the question, and this just came up, whether or not they need your approval for that donation. If it's a direct donation, there was a member, a graduate of that program that passed away, and someone on the Bengal Foundation, a family member, is donating $1,100 for the purchase of manuals, to replace the old manuals that they have in the shop. They did not seek this donation. It was a direct donation from the foundation, and they weren't sure if it needed to come before.
Yes.
It came after we posted, so I have it on the April agenda.
Oh, okay.
Under gifts.
Yeah, they weren't sure if it needed your approval since no one seeked them out for the donation. They are the ones making the donation.
We'll discuss that in April.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let them know.
Yep, thank you.
All right, then we have the calendar of events. The next school committee meeting will be on April 21st.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the superintendent's going to clarify April, May, and June right now.
Yes, with
okay.
approval, we would look to move the April school committee meeting from the 14th to the 21st. That will allow administration to attend the state OVS banquet in Worcester.
Yep.
And in May, we'd look to move the meeting from the 12th to the 19th, just to get us closer to our close of our MSBA window. Oh, that's the outstanding vocation, or local outstanding vocation.
Is that where is that
banquet?
What time?
May 19th.
What time?
It says 5:30 social and 6 o'clock.
Do we want to look at the 26th?
That's after the window, right?
Yes, and it's, the window is okay.
Yeah,
I'm
windows.
sorry?
What about the 19th, on the Wednesday, doesn't have to be.
Oh, the 18th. The 18th. We can do May 18th if the committee wants to hold a meeting on
Is
that.
that better? 18th?
Oh, that's the National Honor Society.
Oh,
Most likely, it's usually that week.
We could do it, I know we're trying to get it as close as we can to the May 20th date, but I think it's not going to hurt us to go to the following week. What did you think?
No, the 26th isn't going to be an issue.
Yeah, it's
All,
not.
once the 20th happens, the 20th is a Friday, so we won't act until the Monday, and all we'll do on the Monday is notify MSBA that our window has closed. If we have received any disapproval, then we will notify MSBA of the disapproval. We have 10 days to do that, so we'll.
So should we stay with 12
Yeah.
to maintain, give us some time, or no?
We can stay with the 12th, if something, on the 12th, we won't be able to do anything with MSBA,
Yeah.
because the window's still going on.
On the 26th, we can actually do
How about,
something.
I can't make the 26th.
So,
I can't be the 26th, but if you have a quorum, I don't want it to.
if,
23rd, what?
We can also wait, as long as we have April's meeting good, we can wait and figure out May
Sure.
as we get closer.
Sure.
That way, I'll actually have more dates, so I don't keep making mistakes in public.
Yeah, okay. So, as of right now, the April meeting will be the 21st. Okay, any,
No, nothing
Nothing.
before the board, I don't believe.
Nothing in the 48 hours.
no, and we have a couple of correspondence. Next meeting, like I said, will be the 21st, and we need to go.
We
into
do have a
executive
reason to
session.
go into executive session, to be very brief, there will be no votes. It will be pursuant to 3.4, paragraph B, pursuant to Mass General Law 38, section 21, paragraph 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, individual contracts, paraprofessionals, part-time adjustment counselor, junior IT technicians, healthcare administrative support, staff, LPN, practical nursing program director, athletic director, division of continuing education bookkeeper, director of continuing education program, scorekeeper, proper employment coordinator, transition coordinator, human resources coordinator, parent liaison, ESP medical assistant, district data specialist, evening security officer. We will, paragraph C is no longer applicable.
Need a motion to go into executive session?
motion made.
Need a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Need a roll call?
Mr. Jennings,
Yes.
Mr. DiBiaseu,
Yes.
Mr. Deegan, Ms. Menard, Father J,
Yes.
and Dr. Menard.
Yes.
Okay, you have a,
We will not keep.
No, we will open up into open session, but there will not be any votes.
We're going to go